Hello again, it's Tuppence. I'm going to be making, I hope, a little gravestone and this really cute bat. Ignore the purple in it. I had an accident with my mica powder, and if you saw my post, I'll just insert a photo here. You can see exactly what happened. It looks a little bit like, is it Veruca Salt, the person who turned purple in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for a little while. And I had to use bleach to get it off my hands, so I am wearing gloves now. Anyway, I want to turn this into a gravestone, I'm hoping, and I've got some plasticine. This is sulphur-free oil-based plasticine, and I want to try and block off the bottom of my mould. So I'm going to put the plasticine in here. Now this sulphur-free plasticine does not interact with silicone. It is fine. So I'm going to use this, but I'm also going to be using Aqua, so it's not going to be in here much more than an hour. And I just want to create a dam at the bottom of this mould. Try and get it somewhat straight. Push it down onto the back. Can be quite high, that's fine. But I do want it to try and make contact with that surface and get well stuck. And I'm hoping that is all the way in the bottom there. It looks pretty good to me. Let's just get my silicone brush and try and neaten that edge up. Won't matter too much if it's a little rough. I can always sand the bottom here. And it's going to look like stone. I want it to look like an old stone anyway, so if it's a little kind of rough textured, I can live with that. And it looks like it's a bit higher than the mould as well. So, all right. Before I go ahead and pour this, I want to do something else. I just need to measure this area. So I'm going to turn that around. I want to measure this part here. So that is about, well, 10.5 ought to do it. So 10.5 to the point of the curve. And the width is, yeah, I'm going to say 7.8. So I'll show you what I'm going to do with those numbers. I'm in Cricut Design Space and I'm going to make a template of that panel in the middle of the tray. So I'm going to bring on a circle and a square. Just move these over a bit. Let's start with the circle first. Now I measured the width and it was 7.8, so that's the diameter of my circle. Move that out the way and work on the square. That is also going to need to be 7.8 wide, but it's going to be 10.5 long. That was the measurement up the middle from that plasticine. So width is 7.8, unlock it and change the height to 10.5. Now I'm just going to center that over the circle. I'll select them both, go to align, and I want to choose, it was no good choosing center, I want to choose align to the middle and align from the top. Okay, so now you can't even see the circle at all. I'm going to deselect and then only select the rectangle in the layer panel, and then I'm just going to drag the top down. Now I want to find the halfway point of the circle where it doesn't have any little bumps sticking out of the side. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see I've still got a little lump sticking out on the side, a step. But now it looks like an arch. It's nice and smooth. I can select both of these now. And then I'll go down to combine and weld. That gives me the shape of the center panel above the plasticine. I'm going to change it from basic to guide. And now I know where I can fit all my letters. So I'm bringing on some text. I'm going to keep it at the basic Cricut Sans. double click the text and just write what I want to write. It's going to be a gravestone. I'm going to start with "Here Lies." I'll just make that a little bit smaller and put it roughly where I'm going to want it to be. But I don't want the text to be straight, so I'm going to go up to the curve tool and I'll drag this slider to the right, and you can see that that is curving the text. And I'll keep going until that is the right shape and it matches the top of the template. I've made it smaller and I'm moving it into position, and I think that is looking great. I'm going to need this text to be reversed because I'm going to want this to imprint onto my Aqua cast. The rest of the text is pretty straightforward. I just need to arrange it, make sure that it's all evenly spaced and aligned. And I've gone with a kind of comical theme based on crafting. So it would say, "Here lies all the projects I never finished." Again, make sure that this is all reversed. I'm going to select all of the text, I'm going to attach them, and then the Cricut will cut that all in one go. I'm going to change the guide back from guide to basic cut, and I'll set the colour to blue so that it cuts on a different mat. This way I can cut this out of acetate and the rest of it can cut out of vinyl. So now I just need to make it. Okay, so I have cut out a piece of acetate that is going to fit in this piece. And I've also cut out my words. And now I just need to stick these on this piece. Try and get it as lined up as possible. It's not easy to see where the edges are on this. Okay, I think that'll do. So yes, they are back to front. And actually, I don't know why that's a bit wonky, but it is. I'm going to go with it. It's quirky. It is a Halloween piece after all. So I'm going to make sure that that is really rubbed down. And then hopefully these should come off the transfer tape. Okay, here lies all the projects I never finished. Now that I've got that, I need to put that in here. Just get that lined up. This should stick down pretty well onto that surface. So again, just want to make sure that that is rubbed down. So I've cleaned this surface beforehand. Okay, really worried about the edges more than the middle. So I just want to make sure that that is attached. Okay, so now I can mix up my Aqua cast, and then I'll be able to just hook that out, whatever that is, and then I'll be able to fill this in. Okay, I've got my powder. I can't remember how much this tray takes, and what I wrote on it has worn off anyway. Also, I'm not filling it all up, so I've got 160 grams of powder here, and I'm hoping that's going to be enough. And it says to mix 60 grams of water. Well, 56 grams of water with that. So there's a little bit more than that in there. I'm just going to stir that together. Start mixing that powder in, and I am going to tint this, but I can always add paint afterwards. I'm going to be painting that bat, which is why I'm not concerned that I've got all that purple mica in there. Okay, I am squishing this against the side of the cup, and hopefully I've got pretty much all of those lumps. So I've got a couple of water-based colours from Temu. I've got black and green. So let's hope that I've opened them. Don't think I have. Let me grab something to open that with. Okay, that's better. Let's pop a few drops of that in. So I'm looking to get a grey, like granite. And I don't care if it's marbled, that's fine. I'll leave that as it is. And pop a couple of bits of green in there as well. lid on that. I already had enough accidents this morning. See? Some days they're just, you're not meant to get out of bed. Alrighty. Clean that off and just pour this now. Okay, I'm going to stop at that. Just take that around. I'm not going to be poking this too much. I don't want to dislodge that acetate. I shouldn't, but I also don't want to dislodge plasticine either. So, pat that around. Give it a bit of a sugar. And I've definitely got more than I need, which is great. I can put this in the bat also. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Let that get on with itself. And then I should have enough for the bat, but I'm going to add a little bit more water to this actually, because this bat has got really fine markings on it, sort of lots of detail and texture in the mould. So I'm just going to make this slightly more watery, and then hopefully that will pick up all that texture and seep into it. I don't want any holy bits. I've got another one that I have already done. So as I say, I had an accident with this one, so I might end up using the other one anyway, depending on how this comes out. All right, let's do this little guy. He is so stinking cute. In there, just going to use the back end of the stick. Brush that over there. I think I should have a silicone brush somewhere. There you go. Use that instead. Take off whatever's on the surface of it. I think I need a few new tools now. All right, let's spread this out. And then all I have to do is wait for it to set up and I can demold it. And that's the one I'm interested in. So I know people, they're not as keen on, or some people aren't, on eco resins as they are on resins. And yeah, you don't mix all your glitters in, but you can paint them, you can add glitter to the surface, you can get some very cool effects. And I really like using it. Resin has its place, and I absolutely love resin, don't get me wrong, and I shouldn't have messed around with that. But yeah, I like eco resin now and again. I think it gives me a little bit more scope for messing around with things. So I like messing around. All right, I'm going to leave that because I'm going to make that worse. So I'll be back when I'm ready to demold these. Okay, I think these are set now, so I'm going to try and demold them. Let's get this little thing first. It is such a soft mold, this one, so it comes out brilliantly. Oh, he's really cute. That's come out really good, and you can only just see a little bit of that purple, so that's great. I'm just going to set that aside to dry, and I will paint that later on. Now this is the one I want to see. Has this worked? Well, that is looking promising. Got a little bit of leak, but not much. Okay, that's brought that with it. So let me see, can I get that out? Very wet underneath there. Let me grab my weeding tool for my Cricut. Okay, and let's see if I can just lift up the edge. There you go. So now I have got the words embossed. Just need to tidy up this bottom. I'm going to do that right now, actually, before this starts to set up even more. It's got to sit and set for another 24 hours at least. As I say, I might pop these in my G3 and that will help to speed up the curing process. So let me just grab some sandpaper and I'll tidy this bottom bit up. Okay, I've got a bit of sandpaper. I'm just going to sand the bottom. That pretty much is all I need to do, really. Okay, that looks much better. And it does stand up. I'm not going to rely on that. I will put something on the back just to make sure that that stays, because I don't want it to keel over and then perhaps cause, you know, it'll crack. All right, so I'll wait and see what happens with this dark splodge, but I'm not hating the finish. It's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so once this little guy is dry as well, I'm gonna stick him on the top. These have had a chance to dry now, and it's still a little bit difficult to see the words. If you catch the right light, then you can, but I'm not liking this dark splodge in the middle. That's really making it difficult to see. So I've got a little tester pot of paint here, and it's pretty much the same colour. I'm just going to use that to try and even out the surface. There are a few areas where I'm just not liking the colour that's there. So I'm using a sponge to gently brush this over the surface. I don't want to put too much on because I don't want to fill in any of that lettering. But I'm hoping if I spread this just especially over that middle bit, this is just going to even out the colour. And then it might make it a little bit easier for me to see the words. I'm going to leave that to dry and lighten up, and then I'll see if I need to do anything else just to highlight those letters. Okay, that's definitely helped a bit. But I want to use some of this Supernova paint, which is a black paint, just again another tester pot, and I'm going to use that really watered down to fill in those letters and highlight it, because it's still pretty difficult to see unless you catch the right angle. So I'm just going to use my mat to mix up a really watery paint. So I'm going to use this super fine brush and carefully put a little bit of the watered down paint, hopefully just in the grooves of the letters. I don't want it to be too dark, I just want a little bit more of a shadow and to define it a bit better. And then I will dab this off, I think, with a paper towel, because it is kind of spreading a little bit. So I've also got a damp baby wipe, so hopefully I can take off anything I don't like. So I'm just going to mess around with this now and see if I can get those letters to look a little bit more defined, and yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that worked, and you can definitely see the text a lot better. So I'm going to use some of the leftover paint and add the texture that I took away by painting it in the first place. Just make it look really old and weathered. Okay, I think that's all right. I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. And while that's drying, I can work on the bat. He also needs painting. The colour doesn't look too bad, but I just want to darken it up a little bit. So I'll use the same black. I just need to grab a bigger paintbrush. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing and dilute this paint really well. I can always add layers of colour rather than try and take it away. So I'm going to make it a little bit stronger, but I'll see how it goes. I'll let it dry and I can always add more layers if I don't like it. What I was hoping for is for the black to seep into the bottom of the texture, and then I can remove the rest of it from the surface just using a baby wipe and restore some of the highlights. And as I was doing that, I pressed too hard and I broke the wing. Not a disaster, I'll just have to stick it on afterwards. So, music back on and I'll paint this little bat. Okay, for the eyes, I'm going to mix up a little bit of this beautiful purple chrome powder from Let's Resin. And I'm going to mix that with some acrylic varnish. I probably have enough powder in the lid, so I'll just scrape that out. And I'm using the acetate that I used as an inlay for a palette. I've got a few drops of the acrylic varnish on there and I'm just mixing that powder in. I'm just going to twist my brush so that I get a nice fine point. And then I can paint this onto the eyes. And because it is an acrylic varnish, this is already going to seal in. So as soon as this is dry, that's fine. You don't need to coat it again afterwards. I intended to just have a ring of purple and leave the pupils black, but I like that purple so much that I decided to fill the eyes in totally. Okay, I want to hang this on my wall. I've designed myself a hanger and I've used my Cricut to cut this out of some faux leather. I'll link the file in my description if you want to go ahead and grab that for yourself. But for now, I need to coat the back of this with some acrylic varnish because I think this is going to stick much better to that surface rather than the porous one. The rest of it, I'll just use a matte spray or some wax. I don't want this to be shiny, so I'll deal with that later. Now for the hanger to work, I need a jump ring and I need a pretty large one. So I'm going to make myself one out of this armature wire. And it's a pretty bendy, so I think if I double it up, it should be fine. I'm going to wrap it around this, it's alcohol ink bottle, because I think that's about the right size. So I'll just bend the wire around and wrap it twice. Okay, then I can slide that out and I just need a pair of snips. Cut that loose. I can move the wire out the way. And now if you're making jump rings, you snip through all the rings at the same place. But I want to keep two rings together, so if I just snip this one piece here, I can get rid of the little bit and then I've got two jump rings, or one ring that goes around twice. So that will give me an extra strong loop, and I just need to slide that small part of the tag through the middle and then that will fold over, and I just need to line that up and glue that, and that's secure in there. I'm using Fabri-Tac glue, but I'm pretty sure you could use E6000 B7000, probably even hot glue. So I'm just going to put this on the small part of the tag. Then I'm going to grab a popsicle stick and spread that out. Make sure it's nice and smooth, covers all the way to the edge. I just need to fold that over, and I'm going to hold this in place for a while. So I'll just grab a peg and clip that together, and then that can set aside to dry. Okay, now it's time to fix the backing, and I'm going to use this UV bonding resin and some B7000. So I'll put the B7000 on here, but that's going to take 45 minutes to dry at least, or to cure, and I'm not going to sit and hold that for 45 minutes. So I'm just going to push this in place, and then I will use some UV bonding resin on the back, and that will bridge the gap and hopefully hold this in place until that glue is completely set, and just give it an extra bit of strength. So this is one I really could do with at least 3 or 4 pairs of hands. You can just get that lined up and hold that crack together. And now I can use one hand to open the bottle, because I should have done that first. And then I can bridge that gap with a little bit of this, and I really do need to get a new bottle of that. And it comes with its own torch, so I'm going to use that to cure it. It takes about 10 to 15 seconds, and then that will be set. And there you go, back together again. Now I just need to attach the bat to the top of the headstone, and I'm using some UV bonding resin for that. I put a little bit down, set that in place. Then I added some more to the back, just to create a stronger bond. I set that, and I kept adding it always to the back so that it wouldn't be visible from the front, but it built up an extra layer of strength and made sure the bat stood upright. I applied the hanging tag on the back using a little bit of super glue and B7000, and I just made sure that the ring was hidden behind the bat. I've added some more UV resin to make sure that the bat stays in place, and I think this is really cute. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd also appreciate it if you'd give me a like, if you'd share this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It's free to you, it seriously helps my channel, and you'll be able to come back and see what I'm going to make next time. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.